This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast Mailbag here on this Friday. Yes, Friday, June 7th, 2024. 8 days away from Clash at the Castle in Scotland. We have a lot to cover, obviously, coming up this week with preview and predictions, even some video for those of you on the SmackDowns here and above. We'll be doing some kind of video here and there over the coming week, and so you're going to want to stay tuned for that. And if you want all of this ad-free, you're tired of every 8 to 10 minutes getting an ad or 2 or 3 in your face, well, patreon.com is the best place to do that, to get rid of those ad frustrations. And you can head on over there and join us and go ad-free for as little as $1. Obviously, you can go up in tier and get some of the video coming up, and you can even get an exclusive show that Anthony DeMarco drops every single week, and that's available to you. But let's get to it. Let's get to Patreon, because those of you who are on Patreon get priority placement. So let's go to those of you who message me directly in the system. Let's talk to the French guy. He says, just want to address that Gable is doing career-defining work. Everything is perfect the way he is doing the promos, the look, the in-ring abilities. He is doing that good of and great work that is beneficial to Otis starting to become over. That's a good point. Now, I don't think anyone would deny that this is clearly the best work of Chad's career. But more importantly, there is and are byproducts that Chad Gable's producing and that are stars, helping get other people over. I don't think Otis in his entire career has ever received this kind of support. Why? Because people are tired of looking at Otis as a joke. Vince McMahon, a lot of times, how many times did you see him be booked as a joke of a talent? Meaning he's the butt of a joke. Let's see how fat he is. Oh, look at his stomach. He's eating all the time. You want a picturesque example of how Vince McMahon viewed Otis? Go watch. And this may be the single worst pay-per-view event I've ever seen in WWE history. And that's saying something. Go watch I think it was the 2020 Money in the Bank when COVID was going on. It was either 2020 or 2021 before fans were back, and they did the Money in the Bank ladder match inside of WWE headquarters. That was by far the most embarrassing, unwatchable match that I've ever seen in my entire life. And Otis, I remember sitting there eating. He's at a buffet. He's shoving food in his face. It was embarrassing. Just embarrassing. It doesn't even cover it. But now you go fast forward here, 2024, and the fans are ready for Otis to explode on Chad. Now, as I've said, the key is what does Chad, or what does Otis do after this? After he eventually explodes on Chad, which will be a fun explosion and a fun payoff, and we all know it's coming. But then what? How does Otis keep the momentum going? You know, you don't want this to be a hot shot. You want this to be a launching point. So that's going to be the key. How do you keep it going? So thanks so much. Let's go to Alex. And he says, just listen to your WrestleMania Kane versus Undertaker nostalgia from 2019. I love the point you made about finishers being kicked out of too much. You talked about solutions and ideas. Do you think 5 years later it's gotten any better? I sure have noticed as a new fan, finishers mean basically nothing now and just seem to be a glorified signature move. Well, thanks, Alex, for listening to the older show I did. And I did repost a show from 2019 about a week ago. And, yeah, I don't think it's gotten better. In fact, I think it's gotten worse. I hope it's something Triple H takes note of. The mystique and lore and surprise that someone kicks out of a finish is gone. In fact, it's now the inverse, where when somebody gets hit with a finish, it's assumed that they're kicking out. Then why call it a finish? Like you said, it's a signature move or just another move in their arsenal. You're also taking away from the dynamic of the match, the drama of the match, and what a finish means. It's gotten worse, not better. I don't want every finish all the time with just one being the finish, being the end of the match. No. But what I do want is more often than not, one finish maneuver should be enough. I mean, look at the super kick. You talk about a move that has been bastardized and demeaned and defined down more than the super kick, i.e. sweet chin music that Shawn Michaels used. There may not be another maneuver. Oh, well, let me take that back. This is in the top 3 of maneuvers taken that used to be a finish, brought into just the typical flow of a match. The only other ones I can think of, a clothesline actually used to be a finish. A body splash off the top used to be a finish. A DDT used to be a finish. And we do see that a little bit here now with Drew McIntyre and the Future Shock DDT. That has occasionally ended a match. But more often than not, a DDT, when you see it, like when Randy Orton does it, it's not a finish move. It's a transition move. So there have been finishing maneuvers done throughout the years that have now been brought into just the flow of a regular match. But the super kick to me is the most egregious because it is the most devastating. And it came from one of the greatest of all time. Imagine the stunner being used now as like a transition move. Hell, why don't we make the tombstone a transition move? All right, I'm going off here, but no, I think it's gotten worse. Definitely worse. Thanks, Alex. All right, well, Shahar, I know you didn't mean this for the mailbag, but I'm going to do it anyway because I want to embarrass myself. All right, I want to call myself out. I'm going to do that because you said I didn't have to put this on, but I'm going to because I'm shameless. So you say, I just want to correct you about Nia not being a champion. She actually was a champion. She beat Alexa Bliss at WrestleMania 34 to become the Raw Women's Champion. And 2 months after that, at Money in the Bank 2018, Alexa Bliss cashed in her Money in the Bank contract to win the title back from Nia. You are correct. Absolutely, Shahar. You are correct. I have gone for months saying that Nia has never been women's champion. And that is factually not true. Obviously, you have brought up her run in 2018. But what I will say, maybe I'll amend my original statement by saying Nia Jax has not had a memorable or meaningful run as women's champion. No one ever, most people, if you look at Nia, I bet you most don't remember that because it was short, it meant nothing, and it was 6 years ago. So I really believe that for all intents and purposes, she, from a meaningful standpoint, has not won the women's championship yet. This is a different version of Nia Jax. This is a more confident version of Nia Jax. This is a Nia Jax, for all the crap I've given her over the years, the Nia Jax I can get behind. She has found herself. I think she's 39, 40 years old, whatever she is. And she has finally found who and what Nia Jax is, and I am behind this. So I think she is absolutely ready for a real run. Not this kind of, oh, well, yeah, she won. Yay, she's champion. No. She's ready this time. Her character's ready this time. So, sure, on paper, she's won it once for 2 seconds. But now it's time for a real run with her as champion. But I appreciate the correction. You're absolutely right. It's amazing I have a podcast sometimes. You guys are just like, no, dude, that's just wrong. How many times I get called out by you guys for things I say? It's embarrassing on my part. It's amazing. Again, I even have a mildly successful show. All right. I think that's it from the inside Patreon side, inside of Patreon. But I have those of you who have emailed me. And let's talk with Rocky T. He says, just got done listening to the Raw review on my drive home because that's where I listen to you. Not like at work like most people, but on my drive to and from work. Well, cool. My commute to work to downtown Houston on a good day is 30 minutes. On a bad day, up to an hour. So I do get to listen to a lot of the podcasts on my drives. Well, yeah, that's good. Because my podcast usually is about 45 minutes, give or take. Sometimes it's as short as 35 minutes. Sometimes it's as long as 50, 55 minutes when it comes to the Raw review. So, hey, I would imagine that most of your drives, if you hit play right when you start driving, that I am in your ear for the drives, unless, of course, you're an hour or more. So the point of Dominic being booed so much that he doesn't get to talk, I believe your question was, how does he get better as a performer if the crowd doesn't let him talk? I think one way is for us to truly hear what he has to say. Unfortunately, for him, is to do a pre-taped promo, like how they had to do with Finn Balor when the crowd wouldn't stop singing Seth Rollins' theme music. While pre-taped promos can be effective, it may not help him grow as much. I just want your thoughts on if pre-taped promos would help Dom in any way grow as a performer. P.S. Everyone keep a lookout for the new WrestleMagic episode with Congo Kong, produced by The Gardener, Michael Gross, Maverick, and the WrestleMagic team. Well, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to that, and you guys are really you guys make I think the variety and flavor of the show diverse, and I like that, because it's a lot of times just me and my opinions. You guys know what it's going to be, my cadence, my voice. You guys break it up nicely. All right. Dominic with pre-taped promos. That's a good idea. I think in the interim, it may be the way that you continue. Here's the thing. It can't hurt him. And if you need Dominic to grow as a wrestler, grow as a performer, then you need to do something to get promos going for him. And if he has this much heat now when he can't even talk, imagine what the crowd's going to do when he, can talk in pre-taped promos and they get to hear what he has to say and dislike him even more. So I think that's how you do it. That's a good way to start it. Now, the crowd still could, if they get clever, boo over pre-taped promos. If the crowd boos over pre-taped promos and the audio from the pre-taped or from the crowd is dubbed over the video we're seeing at home, then it'll even be drowned out at home. What they should do is, in lieu of this, only have the audio from the actual video of Dom and mute the in-person crowd. That way, there's no chance of them doing that. And it allows the at-home audience to hear what he has to say. That's actually the only solution at this point, because the crowd will not let him speak. And I understand why they don't. It's kind of trendy, but also the crowd genuinely dislikes him. It's a combination of both. So, but I would like to hear what Dom has to say. Like, let's see how good of a promo he is. Let's see what he's got to say. Let's see what his character's after. I mean, all we do is just we hate him so much for how he looks. I mean, that's just what it is. His look is obnoxious, and it fits him perfectly with his mustache and his mullet, and it's great. But also his skeeziness and his whole. Remember, Dom went to prison, which he milked forever. He was in like a holding cell for an hour, and he said that he was this guy that came out of hard times, and it was my God Almighty, that was awesome. But yeah, so all right, thanks, Rocky. Let's go to another patron, Matt, and he says, "Do you think?" Matt Brown, he says, "Do you think we will pull the trigger on Chad Gable winning the IC belt and Drew winning the world title? I really hope they do, but it'll be interesting to see how the Scotland crowd would react if Drew doesn't win." I think there's a higher chance of Drew winning than Chad winning. However, Sammy as Intercontinental Champion thus far has not been that interesting. It's been okay. I don't know where they view this going, though. I don't know how long they're imagining Sami Zayn as Intercontinental Champion. I would think they're kind of taking it day by day, PLE by PLE, and they'll kind of play things by ear. It feels like it's the way they're going. But Chad Gable has caught fire here. Imagine him being Intercontinental Champion. There is a case here where I think it makes sense for him to win because Chad is on fire. Sammy's kind of flatlined. Every promo he does is screaming and yelling. He can't cut a promo in a normal speaking voice. Everything has to be all passionate all the time. And it's wearing on me a bit. Still an excellent A+ in-ring wrestler. No doubt. His character is, cooled off significantly since the Bloodline. I still believe he should have won, yes, in Montreal in February of last year. But he's kind of cooled off, and I don't know what they envision him doing after beating Gunther. Now, do I think they'll do it? No, because beating Gunther should have some staying power. Beating the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time should have some staying power with the person that beats him. It especially at WrestleMania. So you beat the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, at WrestleMania. You want that decision to stick. If you transfer it to Chad Gable, maybe they're concerned that the message they're sending is, whoops, this isn't working, let's move to Chad. But I would actually have Chad be Intercontinental Champion. Number one, he's been chasing this belt forever, and he's come within an eyelash of beating Gunther like 4 times. He nearly beat Sami Zayn a couple of times, and it's time, I think, for him to win. I would book him. It's not an easy match to call. Like if you're putting money on this match, I would stay away from it. It's still not a slam dunk that Sami wins. I would give it like 75-25 that Sami does win. I think he probably will. But Chad has a hell of a case to take this because he has never won. Although someone out there will correct me. I don't think he's won the IC belt. He's been chasing it for 14 years, it feels like. And his character, just kind of like Nia's, has found its place. He's on the rise. And it would also give Otis someone to chase for the IC belt. But then it would be like, well, is Otis hotter now than Chad? And are we going to go with the hot hand and have Otis beat Chad? It gets kind of weird. I still would, early prediction, think that Chad loses because then Otis could be the reason that Chad loses, and then Otis and Chad go on a program for a couple of months against one another, and then Sami goes on to another champion. So I still think Sami wins, but there's a strong case to be made for Chad to win. So, thanks. Good question. DJ Kuzmo back at it again, and our mailbag show says, I was a bit disappointed that MJF returned to AEW a few weeks ago at Double or Nothing. I really thought he was going to sign with WWE because towards the end of his reign of terror, AEW title reign last year, most fans seemed to be tired of him and were looking for a change. It was kind of similar to what Cody Rhodes and his wife Brandy experienced from the AEW fans in their final few months during the early part of 2022. Anyway, regardless of MJF's decision to stay in AEW, which was mostly about how he would be getting paid, hopefully that would help AEW's growth as they're in their 5th year of existence. I, every day, imagine MJF in WWE. He clearly followed dollars, and I can't blame him for that. Money is a big factor, and clearly it was the overwhelming factor for him. Here is the key, though, DJ. While I'm disappointed like you are, eventually WWE will come calling with a strong offer that he can't refuse. Or money won't be as big of a driver for him, and MJF looks around the locker room and says, what more can I do here? Who haven't I worked with? You know, I think that MJF, upon his next contract negotiation, will end up with WWE. Now, here's an important point. Unlike the bidding war of 2024 that really was a nothing burger, it kind of quietly went into the night. It never became a big to-do because clearly Tony Khan came to MJF quietly and signed him a massive deal. And so the bidding war never actually manifested itself. But here's the key. This time, MJF has said publicly he's not telling anyone when his contract is expiring. So he's not making a big to-do about it this time. He's keeping it tight, close to the vest, and he's not going to make it public. So that's, I think, a good thing. Why? Because it adds interest, intrigue. It adds, wait a minute, we don't even know when it ends. What he could show up, in 6 months. 6 months. So I don't know when it ends. I would imagine it's probably a 2-year deal, maybe a 3-year deal at the most. I don't think MJF signed a long-term deal because I think he knows that while he's in his prime, he's going to want to get a hold of WWE, and he's going to want a piece of what they have to offer. And I think when MJF comes to WWE, and he will, anyone that tells you that MJF is not eventually WWE bound doesn't understand the business. Now, yes, it's a personal decision for MJF, but if you're MJF and you want to make a career that is next level, you want to be a legend in professional wrestling, WWE will solidify that. And yes, AEW, I have nothing against the promotion, but they're not WWE. They don't have the viewership, they don't have the dollars, they don't have the foothold, they don't have the market share, they don't have the fan base, the foundational fan base that won't go anywhere no matter what you do. They simply aren't WWE, and that's not a slight on them. They just aren't, that's all. I have nothing against their product. I don't watch it enough to even have a strong, intelligent opinion about it. But what I do know about MJF is he is, without a shadow of a doubt, WWE bound at some point in his career. I would argue in the next 2 years. I would think he signed a 2-year deal. That's my guess, 2-year deal with AEW. That's, again, my assumption. I'm not saying it's fact. That's my guess. Probably a 2-year deal, 3 at the absolute most. And I would say, if you're looking for a crazy guess as to when we might see him, how about the Royal Rumble of 2026? How about that? Let's look to that. Royal Rumble of 2026. I think he makes his debut. All right, because think about it too. His current contract expired 12/31/2023, which means if he signed a 2-year deal, 12/31/2025. How about that? You heard it here first. Okay, back to WWE. As we are literally 1 week away from Clash, it is really a foregone conclusion that Drew would become the new World Heavyweight Champion, or will CM Punk ruin Drew's chances again. I think Priest is improving every week as champ, and his promos and creative is doing a great job making him look strong on a consistent basis, unlike Bayley and Cody Rhodes on SmackDown. Okay, so several things here. Bayley and Cody, yeah, they've kind of flatlined. And you know what? You can't always be on the ascent. You can't always be moving up. It's not possible. That's not life. Eventually, you're going to plateau. I don't care what you're doing in your life. You can't always be on the rise. It's just not feasible. I don't care if you're talking about weight loss, you're talking about stock market, you're talking about your investments, you're talking about anything. You eventually plateau, and right now, Bayley especially has plateaued. Cody is plateaued. And you can easily get them back on track. But yeah, I mean, they both don't have really strong opponents right now either. Now, I didn't answer the previous person's question about Drew winning so much, so I'll answer it with DJ's question. Drew winning. Do I think he's going to win? Will he win? Is it a foregone conclusion? I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Because like you said, I think Priest has done an exceedingly good job as world champion, better than I thought, better than probably most people thought. He actually starting to feel like a champion. While he still is probably a transitional champion and Drew is likely to win there, you have to remember one thing. Punk, as you said, will likely, or at least there's a significant chance, he could ruin Drew's victory here. He could ruin it, and Priest is still champion after this. But here's the problem with that. I would prescribe to that idea, except for one massive problem, right? The one massive problem with Punk interfering in this match to cost Drew the belt, you could inadvertently turn Punk heel, and you don't want to do that, at least not right now. You are in Scotland. Drew McIntyre could execute someone on the air. Like, I mean, this is morbid, but you could have Drew McIntyre execute someone's grandmother in the ring, and the fans would cheer. Someone's dog could be killed in the middle of the ring at the hands of Drew McIntyre, and they would cheer. Okay, not going to get any more extreme than that, but you get the gist. There is nothing, zero, you could do to Drew to get the fans to boo him. He is the shielded hometown hero that nothing can penetrate that shield. So if you're going to do that, Punk would get booed into oblivion if you did that. Not a good look, right? So I don't think Punk, while he could show up and ruin it, if it was any other place other than Scotland, I would say, yeah, Punk's going to show up, screw Drew, and we're going to keep Damian as champion. But given it's Scotland, I think you have Drew win, and then Punk shows up on Raw and they're off to their program to Money in the Bank or SummerSlam. That's what I believe is going to happen. Now, you have obviously a looming Gunther who won the King of the Ring, who is chasing the world champion. So he has a match at SummerSlam. Now, is that match going to be one-on-one? If it is Drew versus Gunther one-on-one, who do the fans cheer for? Do they turn Gunther babyface? You can't have a heel. Or is it a triple threat where Punk inserts himself into this match? It's Gunther versus Drew versus Punk at SummerSlam. It's kind of a conundrum. Or is it a fatal four-way? For Drew, Damian, you have Punk, and Gunther. There's those four men in some form or fashion, in some way, are all going to be involved at SummerSlam. Maybe all four for the Intercontinental, the World Title. Maybe it's Drew versus Punk in a grudge match with Priest versus Gunther as the World Championship match. Some form, like some combination of that. But you can't have Punk do it there to screw Drew McIntyre over because you'll turn him heel. And yes, you're saying, well, it's only in Scotland. Once he gets back to the States, he'll get cheered. Not necessarily, right? That could carry over. Even though it's in Scotland and you think, once we leave, the U.S. fans will be back to cheering Punk. I wouldn't bank on it because he's going to be booed so loudly and so hard for ruining that for Drew in Scotland, in front of his family, in front of his friends, in his home country, that I think fans are going to side with Drew on this one. I really wouldn't risk this. If it wasn't for the location, I would say 100% that CM Punk is going to screw Drew McIntyre, but because of where they are, I really don't think it's going to happen. And speaking of SmackDown, to close off the email, since WrestleMania and Roman Reigns are no longer champions, since Roman Reigns is no longer the champion, SmackDown really looks to be a B-rated to C-rated show, kind of similar to the 2004 version of SmackDown when Brock Lesnar left the company after WrestleMania 20, and Vince and creative were looking for a top heel to fill the void after Brock left. Outside of the Rogue Bloodline story, there really aren't any storyline angles to get excited about on SmackDown. Meanwhile, on Raw, we've got 3 intriguing storylines to make it must-see TV. Drew and Punk and the Priest storyline, Liv and Dom, Chad and the Alpha Academy, and the Sami Zayn story. Hopefully things on SmackDown change and leading towards SummerSlam with a few possible returns. DJ Kuzmo signing off. See you all in the Discord chat for Friday Night SmackDown. Yeah, SmackDown feels absolutely... I mean, think about pre-WrestleMania to now. My God, what a difference. A couple things going on here. Number one, it's the ebb and flow of wrestling. Sometimes SmackDown's the hotter show for several weeks or even several months, and then it kind of oscillates back to Raw, and Raw's the hotter one with the better angles and the better stories, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. It has been going on forever. Also, as you mentioned, one of the biggest factors is star power. You are missing a lot of stars that were there prior to WrestleMania. Again, I would imagine Charlotte's coming back to SmackDown. She's probably real close. You have a looming Brock Lesnar, who's probably going to go to Raw and eventually face off with Gunther, maybe probably down the line. But if Brock's coming back, it's usually to Raw. Obviously, Roman Reigns, who is in the next couple of months going to return, maybe face solo at SummerSlam, or some tag team match with him and Jimmy and Jay versus the savages of the new bloodline. You could have that. So Roman Reigns is imminent. I'd say a couple months. You still have Randy Orton there, big star. You still have Kevin Owens there, big star. So LA Knight still there, big star. But you have The Rock also looming, who I would say by SummerSlam or at SummerSlam is probably coming back, right? To start a program maybe with Cody Rhodes. So it's also just the cycle of not just the ebb and flow of Raw to SmackDown and each one being better at different times. Post-Mania is traditionally like this. I don't care who's running the company. It's just the way of the time of the year. It's cyclical. So that's all. I mean, again, right now it's not the most interesting. I have a feeling in a couple of months, even by Money in the Bank, we're going to start to hear and feel and see things changing from a star power perspective, especially, and that will kind of cure your issues, I think. So if we're getting through this part of the year, we're going to be totally fine for the rest. All right, DJ, thank you so much. Let's go to Dino from Scotland. Let's see what he's got to say. I'm happy they finally booked Sammy for Clash. He was one of the superstars I was really hoping to see, considering the amount of top stars that are on the shelf. Also, I was praying for Jey Uso, and after not having seen him on Raw for a few weeks, I was starting to think we weren't going to get him, but then surprise, he shows up on Raw Monday night. I'm thinking, yes. Then he starts talking about Money in the Bank, and instantly a wave of disappointment hits me as I realize there's only one Raw left before the PLE, and he's unlikely to be there, which I'm not happy about. I'm also a little concerned about the lack of actual top talent booked on the show at this moment in time, but it could be looking much better this time next week after the penultimate SmackDown on Friday and the final Raw on Monday. I'm going to wait till next week's Mailbag to see what the final card for the show looks like to determine if I'm going to have a full-blown rant on my preview show or in your preview and prediction email. Let's sit and wait. There is only a week left, and if Jay's already talking about the next PLE, it's unlikely he's coming to this PLE. That's wrestling logic, that has been tried and true, but there's still a chance he could show up. I don't know who he'd feud with or why. He seems kind of floating he's in a waiting period right now, or a holding pattern. It's just we don't have a defined opponent for him right now that he's going to be going into a program with, but post Clash he could be. So again, I would venture to guess that Jay's probably not going to be there. But I could be wrong, and I hope for your sake he is there. Here's a new Uncle Howdy and Wyatt 6 theory. I went back and took a look at the first QR code with all the letters. The theory is that it's each member's first initial, but if it's unscrambled, you get June 15th, which is obviously Clash at the Castle. Now, what does the AD stand for? AD is Anno Domini, which is Latin for the Year of the Lord. Uncle Howdy has been getting religious on us, and with some of the QR promos, it seems possible that Uncle Howdy is saying he will be born again on June 15th. In the latest set of QR codes, he speaks about a massacre that is coming, so I think we could get Uncle Howdy on the 15th and the massacre on the 17th on Raw. I pitched this to my friend, and he said I had the same sort of theory on those letters and numbers that I tweeted the other day. It's not only spells out Uncle Howdy, Dexter Lumis, Eric Rowan, Nikki Cross, and Joe Gacy, but Alexa and June 15th, AD equals arrival date. I think we get Howdy at Clash at the Castle and the group on the 17th of Raw. What are your thoughts? That's all for this week. Speak to you next week on the Mailbag for the full preview and prediction. Thank God for people like you, Dino. I'm serious. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, demeaning way, or sarcastic. I mean it for real, because I never would ever have time to do this, to just dissect this kind of thing. And I appreciate your analysis and your effort to try to decode these things, because it's fun. I think it's very plausible that the 15th, in Scotland, I won't even say Glasgow or Glasgow, because every time I say it the wrong way. So I'm just going to say Scotland. I can't pronounce that wrong. So in Scotland, seems like they could debut. Now, I wouldn't imagine that the debut isn't the massacre, because wouldn't they want to make the biggest impact on the day they debut? Could be the next Raw, sure. We don't know if it's going to be Raw. What if it's on SmackDown? I don't know. But I guess my point is that usually when you come in, you want to make the biggest impact possible, and therefore the massacre would be that day. But I could be wrong. Either way, it does seem that way, that it's going to be on the 15th, and it's Uncle Howdy or some iteration of him and as Bo Dallas, or some kind of tribute to the Fiend, or some connection back to Bray's character, or whatever, the Wyatt Six, whatever. But it does seem we are very close, and I think Scotland is the place to do it for this debut. So, good stuff, Dino. All right, Freeman. It's been a while since Cody Rhodes has done something majorly offensive, and I'm enjoying the downtime. So I've tried to work out why I don't like him conceptually, rather than just what personally quirks me about the most. I think it's because he doesn't really play a character. He blurs the lines between Cody Rhodes and Cody Runnels, and at times it's hard to say where one starts and the other begins. This adds depth of the realism to the character, but real people are hard to write stories for, which can lead to bad writing. One trope of a badly written character is they are passengers in the journey and not the driving force for change. I don't know all the stories he has been involved in, but this rang true for the Bloodline stuff through WrestleMania. The driving force that pushed the story along was The Rock inserting himself into the program. Cody was essentially just there, riding the story train, but not making any decisions on its destination. And his finishing the story wasn't really his story. It was the Bloodlines. He was just there replacing with AJ Styles, Knight, or even Ricochet, and what would have changed. The only thing I could think of is we probably would have gotten Rock Roman, but that was the fans making the change, not Cody, even in story. Yeah, I mean, the fans always drive what happens, or at least they're not involved in the creative meetings, but they give the instant feedback to whether they like something or they don't, which it'll change things moving forward. But Cody had the story to finish from his father. That was the underlying current of Daddy never won the championship. I'm doing it for him. Our family never won this. I'm doing it for our family. So I'm finishing that story, right? So you can't really replace AJ or Knight or Ricochet with that, because that was Cody's story and not any of those other men. Cody, he isn't very assertive. He is very passive. He's very happy-go-lucky, very trusting. And yeah, he's again, a soft, feminine champion. That's what he is. That's what I can't stand about him. And if this really is who Cody Reynolds is, and then, that's why people gravitate to him, because he feels authentic to those people. But to me, it's not an endearing character trait. I've gone over why I don't like his character many, many, many times, so I won't do that again. But let's go on here. The thought process has all come about because of Liv and Dom, which is incredible entertainment, by the way. Both Liv and Dom are pushing a narrative forward, and the story is very much theirs. They are playing characters that may have the basis in their real personalities, but is likely quite far removed from it, which allows for better storyline progression and ultimately probably makes it easier for creative to write a story for them. We see this in the people like Bayley, who doesn't really have a defined character and plays an exaggerated version of herself. But since she won, creative can't write a story for her, as her character isn't defined enough to write a story about that is hers and hers alone. The Damage Control breakup was hers at least, but with that over, what does she have? Bayley needs help. Even after she won the Rumble, she was an afterthought. How many times did we say after she won the Rumble that, why aren't we talking about Bayley? One of the greatest women's wrestlers in WWE, one of the original pioneers of the women's revolution, one of the 4 horsewomen, and yet we're not talking about her at all, because to be fair, the Rock, Roman, and Cody saga sucked all the oxygen out of the room. All the attention was on them, but it did at the same time hurt Bayley because people weren't even talking or discussing her. Yet at the same time, Bayley and Io had one of the best matches on WrestleMania. I really enjoyed their match, but that doesn't really help Bayley moving forward. Moving forward, Bayley needs promos. Bayley needs a new. She needs kind of a boost. She needs to not just dwell in her current version of herself where, I'm Bayley and my name value will carry me. Creative needs to push her along, like character wise. They need something there. Bayley's just Bayley right now, and they need more. Dom has been one of my favorite characters to watch for a while, and that's likely due to his commitment to his character, which is why I see the criticisms of Dom online calling him out for having a wife, and I do wonder if people realize these are actors we're watching, and if the realism factor, people like Cody will bring the waters down. People like Cody bring waters this down a little too much. Kayfabe is dead, and blurring the lines of realism seems to be the new normal. But I think a lot of the roster could learn from Dom and he has actually created an on-screen persona. He's one of the few people keeping kayfabe personas alive. And if more people did this, we would get better stories overall. Or maybe with some people blurring the lines, it adds spice to those that don't. Ultimately, I don't know the answer, but thanks for listening to my rant. Can't wait for Dom to turn to learn the live, cheat, and steal gimmick. Oh, I like that. Yeah, the Dom storyline's been intriguing. One of the highlights of Raw. I don't think anyone saw this one coming, before it started, but I think it's working well. And boy, does it set the table perfectly for a Rhea Ripley return that's going to be epic. When Rhea Ripley returns, massive pop, easily the biggest babyface woman on the roster, at least on Raw side, and you have an instant story that you can string out for months. And I don't think It's a foregone conclusion that Rhea immediately recaptures her belt. Babyfaces on the chase make a much better story than babyfaces getting what they want. And then it's like, the problem is a lot of the time they get what they want, and then it's like, okay, now what? And you're seeing that a lot with Bayley right now. So, thanks, Freeman. All right. I think we have one more email and then one voicemail and we'll be done. So let's talk to Hungry Pup. He says, love the show. I absolutely loved LA Knight on Friday Night SmackDown. When Carmelo Hayes came out and botched his spot, LA Knight was hilarious. Carmelo asks, why would LA Knight want to face you? LA Knight went right after him saying, if I face myself, I'd be looking in the mirror. That was really good. Very quick-witted on LA's part, yes. That right there is why Carmelo Hayes needs more time grinding and why LA Knight is seemingly going to challenge for the U.S. belt. Also, in the match right after, am I alone in feeling Apollo upstaged Andrade? I'm not feeling Andrade. Maybe it's just me. I want him to go heel, so I have a reason to pay attention when he's on TV. So, Carmelo, I wouldn't say, based on one blunder in a promo, I'm not going to say that he needs more time. If we're going to use that as a metric of whether or not someone needs more time, well, then Roman Reigns shouldn't have been in the main event for like 8 years. And yet Vince pushed him as the big dog for 6-7 years down our throats when he was a terrible promo and botched promo after promo. So I'm not going to use that against Carmelo. He still has confidence on screen. He still is very good in the ring. So sure. It's funny and it is quick-witted on LA Knight's part. But as far as Andrade, I'm not feeling it either. I don't know what they're doing here. He didn't, even when he came back, it was kind of like, oh, cool, Andrade, I remember him. What's he doing here? What's his deal? What's his mission? Who is he? Is he babyface? Is he heel? What are we doing? Outside of bringing him back so him and Charlotte can travel together, what are we doing? I don't feel Andrade either. He's in a place of no man's land. There's no defined role for him, really. There's no, I don't know. I know he's in this in-between thing, and he's, come join my group or whatever with Legado del Fantasma. But I don't know who and what Andrade is right now. He needs something defined, and I don't know what that is. So, thanks, Hungry Pup. All right, let's go to, I think we have, let me look at the voicemail box here. We've got one voicemail. One. So let's go to that one voicemail, and then we'll be done for the day. So let's get to it.
Hi, Matt. It's Bevan from Australia. Yeah, I hope you're well. I'm driving to work on a very cold morning. Hey, I just wanted to bring something up that sometimes that bothers me a bit when I watch Raw or SmackDown or PPAs, whatever the deal is. When it comes to, I think I've noticed it a lot on Raw on Monday. It was evident to me. Physical size of these wrestlers. So you've got Braun Breaker against Ricochet, and if I put my opinion aside is I just want to see Ricochet squashed every single time he plays. So if I want to see a guy like him perform, I'd go to the Cirque du Soleil to watch the flips and the tumbles. Not saying he's good that he can do it, but it's not wrestling. That's my opinion. But, you look at that and you go, right, Braun Breaker against Ricochet, the likes of Damian Priest against Rey Mysterio. Massive size difference. And yet these guys apparently can take the likes of Braun and Damian to the limit, as they would say. I just find that unrealistic. I'm not saying that Rey Mysterio doesn't deserve a Hall of Fame. Of course he does. But you look at that and you go, these matches shouldn't be going on for 15 minutes. One clothesline from the likes of Braun Breaker going at, 23 miles an hour? That's going to that will knock people down for good. And yet, they fight back and they try and make something of it, I think matches like that need to be more realistic, too. I'm not saying that David can't beat Goliath, but in the majority of the time, let's be honest, Goliath will prevail. And I think they need to bring that into these type of matches so that it's not like, oh, wow, the likes of the size of a garden gnome, taking on a tractor suddenly nearly wins. It's not going to happen. That's what really annoys me about those matches, and I don't like it. Sorry, that's really all I've got this week. But again, hope you're well, man. And I hope one day when I get to New York, I've been there twice. Man, I'm taking you out for a coffee or a beer, whatever your choice. It would be great to actually meet you. Take care, buddy. Bye.
Bevan, I'm going to hold you to it, man. You can't make an offer like that and then not follow through. So, by the way, when you say New York, I'm imagining that if you come here, you're probably going to New York City, and everybody, that's not from New York. You say you're from New York, they automatically assume New York City, the boroughs, Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn. I'm 2.5 hours north of New York City, in the capital of Albany. I think you probably already know that. But anyway, if you come to New York City, maybe, if I'm down in the city catching a Yankees game or something, or visiting a friend down there, maybe I can join you. Maybe you can join you, and I'll hold you to it. Maybe a coffee and a beer. Kind of a weird combo, but maybe both. All right. The issue of size is one that I would agree that it should be something that's more played off of. Like, everyone seems to always take everyone else to the limit. It seems like everyone's on an even playing field. There's no hierarchy at times. It's just everyone can take everyone else to the limit. Oh, this person's very game, as Michael Cole would say, a very game whoever. Why does it have to be like that? I don't know. I don't need a squash match to define somebody down to nothing. But you're right. Somebody like Ricochet versus Braun Breaker, or Rey Mysterio versus somebody that's much bigger. Everyone takes everyone to the limit. Nonsense. I don't know why that's done that way. If it's by design of the matches or the wrestlers themselves, it does make it unrealistic. Ricochet, very much a Cirque du Soleil wrestler or performer. To me, he's a performer, not a wrestler. I'm sure he would very vehemently disagree and point to how many cool things he can do in the ring. To which I would say, your girlfriend's more over than you are. I mean, that's a fact. Your girlfriend, who's never even had a match, is more over than you are. But maybe it's his, maybe the match at WrestleMania that he had. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's right. He didn't have a match at WrestleMania. So anyway, I'm on a Ricochet, Ricochet tear right now. I think he's a jerk. I mean, I really do. Not because he said something back to me on X, but everything I see on his Twitter, which again is very much him and not his character, he seems like a very easily triggered, very much fragile ego jerk. I mean, he just does. And also he seems very, I guess, resentful of the fact that he's so good in the ring and yet he doesn't get, the top opportunities. Not understanding that, hey, bro, it's not all about how many flips and flops and cool moves you can do. He's somehow still in his career, however old he is, I would imagine, I think he's mid-30s, has still not grasped the concept of understanding that in the ring is much of a secondary or tertiary factor when it comes to getting over. People may react to your moves, but they don't care about your character because they don't know your character other than just you are the guy that does cool stuff. You talk about a superficial connection to a superstar. There's nothing more superficial than just, oh, this is the guy that's going to do cool stuff and entertain me. Yeah, that's the connection you want. That's a lasting connection. That's a formula for long-term success right there, buddy. You fool. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I can say all this stuff and also acknowledge how athletic he is. It's incredible the stuff he does. Yes. It's incredible, yes. But it's very much not the priority of how to connect with fans. Very much not. For at least long-term success. And if you want proof of that, just look at your career, pal. If you think that is what makes you successful, look at the body of work of your career. Look at the successes you've had. hasn't exactly been a legendary Hall of Fame career. You are simply defined by the moves you've done, not the storylines you've been in. It's all you need to tell yourself about the success of your career. And hey, if you define success as how the crowd reacts to your just individual matches, then sure, your career has been a success. But that's a very micro lens to view your career. I can't believe I need to say this to an actual active wrestler who's been there for years. All right. Anyway, Bevan, thank you. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. But they're not going to change their formula. That would mean foundationally changing how they present matches, and that's not going to happen. You and I both know that. All right. So thanks so much, everybody, for listening. I appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much for the emails and the calls, or the call, singular. So I appreciate it. If you guys do want to send voicemails in, by all means, do it. The numbers in the notes of this, the show notes of this actual episode, let's see, instead of just telling you to go there, if you're interested, I could tell you, where is the damn number? I lost it. I don't know. It was here and I lost it. The number's in the show notes. Because when I tell you, hey, here's the number, no one's sitting there with a pen and pencil and writing down the number, right? So just go to the show notes and copy and paste that in, and you can call and leave a voicemail if you choose. So, all right, everybody, thanks so much for listening. I'll be back on Sunday for your week in review. The After Dark show with Anthony DeMarco will be coming your way in the next day or two. So check that out for those of you on the NXT Plus and above. You get that this week. So consider going on Patreon if you want ad-free, or Apple Podcasts if you want everything ad-free. Thanks so much, everybody, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.